Now the very latest stories from here and around the world with the ITV News.
Theresa May's promise to wipe out anti-Semitism. The Home Secretary says since the Paris terror attacks, Jewish people here are feeling anxious and vulnerable.
I never thought I would see the day when members of the Jewish community in the United Kingdom would say that they were fearful of remaining here in the United Kingdom.
Also ahead, passengers still stranded either side of the channel as new problems cause chaos for Eurostar. 6 million turn out to see the Pope in Manila, but one 12-year-old moves him more than most.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
And happy birthday, Gladys, the woman celebrating becoming Britain's oldest person.
This is ITV News with Nina Hossain.
Good evening. Theresa May says she never thought she'd see the day when Jewish people here would be fearful of staying in the UK. The Home Secretary said the country must redouble its efforts to wipe out anti-Semitism after the Paris attacks. Her promise comes as the former head of MI5 warned Britain's anti-terror laws are not fit for purpose. Our political correspondent, Romilly Weeks, reports.
They're the signs that after Paris have taken on a heavy significance around the world. The Home Secretary, Hossain, reading "I am Jewish," had come to reassure a community that now feels under threat.
I never thought I would see the day when members of the Jewish community in the United Kingdom would say that they were fearful of remaining here in the United Kingdom. And that means that we must all redouble our efforts to wipe out anti-Semitism here in the United Kingdom.
In response to those fears, the government has tightened security in Jewish areas and is promising measures to combat all forms of extremism.
It's shocking, it's shameful that any sector of our society should feel worried and concerned, and that's why we've sought to introduce new measures. We have to understand that a free and open society, as we are and as the French are peculiarly vulnerable to the kind of attack that we saw last week.
How to make the UK less vulnerable is causing a growing row. Today, the ex-head of MI5 said that Britain's anti-terror laws are no longer fit for purpose, writing that if you're abusing a child or planning a terrorist attack, you're more likely to be able to avoid the attention of the police or security agencies today than would have been the case a few years ago. It is imperative that the laws that govern this issue be brought up to date. Handing the security services greater powers to store all our communications, though, is passionately opposed by the Lib Dems.
Trying to keep ourselves safe by going after those who are guilty of wishing to harm us is one thing. Storing data about the millions and millions and millions of fellow British citizens who are innocent of any wrongdoing at all seems to me to be something quite different.
The Paris attacks have brought communities together in their determination to show solidarity across religious lines. What it hasn't done yet is produce a political consensus on how best to combat the extremist threat.
The Prime Minister has managed to find significant common ground with President Obama, though, agreeing to gather new measures against ISIS in Iraq and against the militant group Boko Haram in Nigeria. These will be fleshed out on Thursday here in London at an international summit to coordinate the global response to the Islamist terror threat.
Romilly Weeks, thank you. Around 80 people, many of them young children, have been kidnapped in Cameroon. It happened during a raid which was thought to have been carried out by Boko Haram militants from Nigeria. And one of the gunmen who killed 12 people at the French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo has been buried. Officials confirmed Sharif Kouachi had been buried in an unmarked grave in a Paris suburb overnight. Here, Eurostar has been forced to cancel services for a second day after a power problem caused the Channel Tunnel that closed the Channel Tunnel this morning. 11 services have been cancelled today as delays continue after an unrelated fire yesterday. Our reporter Ria Chatterjee is at St Pancras Station in London. Yet more frustration for passengers, Ria.
Yes, definitely that, Nina, and probably a sheepish sigh from Eurostar, who have been trying to get their services back to normal after yesterday's incident. Now, 6 Eurostar trains from London and 5 in Europe have been cancelled because of this secondary incident. One of the trains from London to Paris was due to leave here just a few minutes ago. And of course, cancelled trains means unhappy passengers. So what exactly happened? Well, one tunnel was already closed because of yesterday's incident. And then because of this power supply problem, the second tunnel was closed for a couple of hours, which had a knock-on effect. So even though the incidents were separate, some of the passengers who were affected by yesterday's incident may well find themselves once again stranded in another country with no way to get home. Nina.
Ria Chatterjee, thank you. 6 million people braved the driving rain to celebrate Mass with the Pope in Manila today. But the words of one little girl touched him deeply. The 12-year-old asked Pope Francis why so many children become involved in drugs and prostitution. Moving him so much, he took her in his arms to comfort her. Richard Pallow reports.
It is among the most devoutly Catholic countries in the world. So the record 6 million turning out to meet the Pope in the Philippines was far from unexpected. What was what happened when one former homeless girl got up to speak. Young Glazelle Palomar questioning why God allows prostitution and poverty among children. A painful moment for her and the listening crowd, rescued by the Pontiff's decision to personally address the 12-year-old. Unscripted, he said the world needs to learn how to cry over the plight of children, following that with a fatherly embrace. The very thing she'd missed through much of her childhood. The crowd surpassed even the one which greeted Pope John Paul II in the early 80s, a reassuring sign that Catholicism is still thriving in Asia, despite declines in Europe and the US. And a recent renaissance owes much to the impact of Pope Francis since his appointment. The man at the very top, who today reminded one child near the very bottom that she mattered too. Richard Pallow, ITV News.
In the Premier League, the title holders Manchester City have been beaten at home by Arsenal. City could have closed the gap on Chelsea at the top with a win, but an outstanding display from Santi Cazorla inspired Arsenal to victory. Anil Singera reports.
Following Chelsea's emphatic victory yesterday, the pressure was firmly on second-place Manchester City to close the 5-point gap. In their way stood an Arsenal team bidding for revenge following their 6-3 defeat here last season. And it was the Gunners who were rewarded for their early pressure.
Mike Dean points for a penalty.
Nacho Monreal brought down in the box by the City captain, Vincent Kompany. There was certainly contact, but Monreal made the most of it. Santi Cazorla slotted home the penalty. Arsenal 1-0 up. Arsene Wenger delighted. After the break, City had a golden opportunity to equalise. Arsenal defender Laurent Koscielny just doing enough to prevent Sergio Aguero from scoring. City were made to rue that missed chance. Olivier Giroud settling the game for the visitors with this header from a Cazorla free kick. Arsenal up to 5th. Next up for City, a title showdown with Chelsea. Anil Singera, ITV News.
In today's other Premier League game, West Ham beat Hull City 3-0. Stuart Downing sealed victory for the hosts with the third goal 18 minutes from time. Finally this evening, she says she doesn't feel a day over 70, but Britain's oldest person, Gladys Hooper, celebrated her 112th birthday today. Paul Brand reports now on her big day.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
She's only just become the oldest person in Britain. Today, she's that little bit older still. Nobody else in the country is 112, and even Gladys Hooper doesn't feel it.
I don't feel much different to when I was 70. One never knows how much longer one has. But so far I'm not doing too badly, am I?
Gladys was born in 1903, the year the Wright brothers invented the first aeroplane. She was a pianist to the stars before setting up a car hire business in the 20s, then running a school. She officially became Britain's oldest person on Thursday after the death of Ethel Lang at 114. Today's party was organised by Gladys's 84-year-old son.
She is a remarkable lady. She's had a very humorous type of life. She loves humour, she loves music, and yes, and she loves her family, of course.
She'll be 1, so that's still 111 years age gap.
Gladys says her secret is an active life, never being idle. Now celebrated as Britain's oldest person, she's still not getting much rest. Paul Brand, ITV News.
Congratulations to her. That's it for now. I'm back with the late news at 10 o'clock. Until then, from all the weekend team, good evening.
Outlook. Worcester Bosch sponsors ITV National Weather.
Hello there, good evening to you. It's going to be staying cold through the week ahead. The risk of further wintry showers with fog, frost and ice by night, and that's certainly the case for us tonight. The showers will become more confined to the coast. Elsewhere, dry, clear skies allowing temperatures to plummet. We're likely to see the coldest night of the winter so far. Temperatures in Scotland could get down to at least -12 degrees Celsius. A widespread frost expected, the risk of ice and some freezing fog patches too. Especially across Northern Ireland here, the fog likely to linger for much of the morning. It's going to be a very cold start to the day. Coastal wintry showers, elsewhere dry with sunny spells and little change into the afternoon. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye for now.
A warm outlook. Worcester Bosch sponsors ITV National Weather.